Here at Frog Artist Inc., we care greatly about all of our viewers.
Please buy my shirts.
And so we decided to give you the spotlight and react to some of your Halo hot takes. A hot take, if you don't know, is an unpopular opinion. One that, after you post, you expect to catch heat for. At the time of recording, my post asking for hot takes has 36 replies. I won't be responding to all of them because some of them are very hot, some of them I don't have much to say about, so it wouldn't be worth including them, and if I replied to every single one, then this video would be way too long. In the comments, be sure to say which hot takes you agree with or disagree with and why, or why you agree or disagree with my responses to them.
I can't believe you agree with insert hot take. Your Halo opinions are so terrible. Reported and blocked.
Without further ado, let's read the first one. The Covenant and the Flood are the most say-what-you-see names in video game history. Terrible writing. Might as well be called the union of different species, and the will overwhelm you. Okay, so some of the takes I'll read in this video I'll agree with, and some I'll disagree with but still understand. This one I don't get at all. Covenant is a genius name. It's concise, catchy, and it tells you everything you need to know. Why are all these different aliens teamed up trying to destroy humanity? Well, they share a religion. If you don't want a name that describes them, what else would you call them? The army of hedge trimmers? Something completely made up like the Blargoblorf? I think Covenant's great. Same thing with the Flood. Concise, catchy, explains everything you need to know about them. Don't overthink it. Halo 3 is the worst of Bungie's Halos. Its campaign is poorly written and uninspired, and multiplayer feels off with the projectile shot versus hit scan. Yeah, so with this take, I think a lot of it just comes down to personal preference. Every Bungie game has problems and has things it does better than the rest. For example, I agree that 3 has the worst story of any game in the trilogy, but that doesn't really affect my enjoyment of it because that's low on my list of what makes Halo fun for me. The stuff that Halo 3's campaign does well, like level design or vehicle combat, I care a lot more about. On the multiplayer front, I love Halo 3's multiplayer and think it's the best in the series. It's different going from Halo 2 to Halo 3 and having it be projectile-based, but I think people make a way bigger deal of it than they should. Just learn to lead your shots. Halo Infinite should have just been linear instead of going for open world. Yeah, so I think the open world could have been executed better, but I wouldn't say they shouldn't have tried. You can't just release the same game over and over again. You have to experiment and try new things. With Halo originally being envisioned as a big open world game 25 years ago, I don't hate that they tried to go back to the series' roots and give it a shot. Gameplay changes like armor abilities, sprint, and ADS were super criticized, the art style changes were hated, and people were confused by the story and its direction in the other 343 games. I think the open world was a great way to try and expand the franchise and have something unique to Infinite while also staying true to the Halo formula and satisfying older fans. Whether or not it was done well is up to you, but I think it was at least worth attempting. I don't like Halo Reach. I played through my original copy of Halo Reach a week or two ago and recorded a bunch of footage so I could make a video about it at some point. I think it has a lot of problems, especially with the campaign. The multiplayer, though, I always liked and I played a lot of. And I do like Reach overall. I think it did a lot of things really well and I did have fun playing through it again. But I will say I don't think it's nearly as good as the first 3 games. The library and CE's backtracking are great. Did a whole video on it. There's 2 parts to this one and I like both. I've said on this channel many times that I hate the library, which is definitely not a hot take as most people agree with me. I think if it was 1 or 2 floors shorter, I wouldn't have an issue with it. The level Pillar of Autumn I like a lot, but when I think about that one, it has some of the same problems as the library. You're doing nothing but running through hallways that look the same and there's limited enemy variety. In PoE, you only fight grunts and elites. The difference is that I can speedrun Pillar of Autumn in 4 minutes while the library has an achievement for beating it in under half an hour. I think it's simply too long, and if it was shorter, I know I wouldn't hate it nearly as much. As far as backtracking goes, I think the complaints get overblown. I think it's neat to go back through places you've already been and see how the Flood just completely wreck everything. The best example being Keys. It's not as well executed in CE as it would be later on in Halo 3, specifically on Floodgate, but I think it still works. Had the library been better, then I don't think people would dislike the backtracking as much. But as the game turned out, there are 6 great levels to start, then 1 that sucks, then 3 that backtrack. If the first 7 levels were all unique environments that people actually liked, then I think the backtracking would get less heat. Split screen campaign is greater than any online multiplayer. For me, I remember having a great time playing split screen campaign. Trying to get through the game on Legendary with a buddy in your lap. Trying to get through the game on Legendary with a buddy sitting next to you on the couch was always a blast. But I still spent most of my time playing Xbox Live, and when my friends came by, we would play online most of the time instead of the campaign. When you're new to Halo, yeah, I had more fun playing split-screen campaign, but over time it becomes about replayability and multiplayer has more of it. Halo 2's blur cutscenes look cool, but they are ultimately inferior to the originals as they create a disjoint between the gameplay and cinematics, and in some cases outright misrepresent a level style, e.g. the sacred icon taking place during the day in the establishing shot. Yeah, so this was something I noticed when I was making my Halo 2 video. There are lines from the Arbiter that are amazing in the original cutscenes that for whatever reason, whatever they did, they don't have the same weight in the remaster. Overall though, they are of a much higher quality than the original. I still prefer the original too, but I completely understand why people like the new ones better. Halo 2 Legendary was fair. I 100% agree with this take. There's stuff like jackal snipers and dual-wielding elites killing you in half a second or whatever, and you could call that unfair. I think Legendary should feel kind of unfair. Heroic is listed as the way Halo is meant to be played, not Legendary. I think Legendary should feel like a ridiculous challenge. I think it also just depends, frankly, on your skill level. When I was a kid, I did think it was impossible and way too hard. Now, of the Bungie Halo games, I'm definitely the worst at Halo 2, but I can get through it fast enough on Legendary that my video on it gets comments every now and then saying my times aren't legit. BS happens in every Halo game, and Halo 2 is no different. Instead of blaming the game, consider the following. Get good. Armor lock was perfectly balanced and didn't need to be nerfed in the title update. Armor lock is terrible, and nothing is worse than having someone cornered and then they turn on armor lock and bring the combat to a screeching halt. An armor locker can single-handedly ruin a match for me. Halo CE has by far the best campaign of the original trilogy. So I played more Halo CE than any other Halo campaign. In terms of the core gameplay, the 30 seconds of fun, it is my favorite. But there are other aspects that I think the other games do much better. Halo 3 has far better level design. There isn't a dull moment in Halo 3 outside of Cortana. CE has its own Cortana, but worse than the library, and the backtracking, while I think overblown, is inferior to Halo 3, which has almost every level be a unique environment outside of Floodgate. Halo 2 is much better than CE in terms of story. I like the new enemies added outside of Jackal Snipers and the tweaks made to existing enemies, specifically elites and regular Jackals. I also mostly like the new weapons, the battle rifle, carbine, brute shot, energy sword, fuel rod gun, beam rifle, they're all great. I changed my mind on this a lot, so I probably said each one of the campaigns is my favorite at some point in this channel, so I don't know if CE would be my overall favorite or not, but I think saying it's by far the best is a stretch. Halo was built as a PvE game first, it's the reason why plasma pistols are slow and dodgeable, and lost its way by focusing too much on PvP. So Halo was built as a PvE game first. The original game almost had multiplayer cut entirely because they didn't think they could finish it in time. I don't think I'd say it lost its way by focusing on PvP. The overwhelming majority of time people spent playing Halo was in multiplayer. Maybe not for CE because no Xbox Live and not everyone has friends, but 2 and 3 for sure. It makes sense why you'd focus on PvP. It simply has more replayability than a campaign. You can team up with your friends, work towards higher levels, play different modes, grind for unlocks. People, myself included, spend hours and hours playing multiplayer. I am definitely more of a campaign person now than a multiplayer person, but there's only so many times you can run through a Halo campaign before you just get bored of it. Whenever you've beaten a game like CE countless times and Legendary isn't really tough anymore, you have to come up with new and off-the-wall ways to keep it interesting and challenging, like learning speedrunning. The newer games are obviously not liked as much as the older games, but I don't think that's because they're too focused on PvP, because the old games were also heavily focused on PvP. I think they just aren't as well made. The DMR is more of a problem to competitive Halo Reach multiplayer than Armor Lock. Destroys the sandbox by being a 4-hit kill at both short and long range. No reason to pick anything else up on the map besides rockets or swords, and even swords will get outclassed. Battle Rifle is perfectly balanced as all things should be because you had to land all 12 shots of the burst to get a 4-trigger kill. I spit on the DMR. So, Cryptic Comms, you said 4-hit kill, but that didn't seem right to me, so I did some investigative work. Here's the DMR at short range. That's 5 shots. Here's the DMR at long range. That's 5 shots. You are #debunked. But for real though, I don't think it's unbalanced at all. I hadn't played Reach multiplayer in a long time, so I popped it on and played a couple games, and yeah, people were using all kinds of weapons and nothing screamed, oh my god, the DMR is so unfair. With 5 shots, plus the reticle bloom, I definitely don't think it's game breaking, and certainly not more so than Armor Lock. I've never liked ODST's campaign. In 2009, this wouldn't have been a hot take, now it probably is. I replayed ODST for a video I did on it a couple months ago and I loved it. It has a stretch of levels from Kazingo Boulevard through Data Hive that are all top tier Halo. My biggest problem with it honestly is just that it's too short. I played through it on Legendary for that video, I don't know a single thing about ODST speedrunning and it only took me about 3 hours to beat. Had I paid full price for it when it came out and not have had it bought for me by my dad, I probably would have had a much lower opinion of it. But now in hindsight, just looking at it for what it is, I think it's great. Well, that's a bunch of Halo hot takes. If I didn't respond to yours, again, some of them I didn't think were hot, while others I just didn't have much to say about. I won't tell you which is which. Comment on which ones you agree or disagree with. I may do more videos that involve submissions from you folks in the future. I'll catch you next time.